ship discounts, carpet compasses, what you can't bring onto the ship, and how early you need to make your reservations. There's a lot about the Disney Cruise Line that you need to know before you go, and we're here to fill you in on all things DCL here on DFB Guide. Hey everybody, it's AJ for Disney Food Blog. Today we're giving you the DL on the 50 most important things you're going to need to know before cruising with Disney, including the basics, the insider tips, and the secrets that'll make you go, I never thought about that before. And believe me, there are at least 150 more of these that I want to include, so hopefully we'll be doing a few more videos like this if you are new to cruising or even veteran cruisers who can't wait to learn a little bit more. Now, if you're thinking about cruising with Disney in the future, make sure to download our free Disney Cruise Line packing checklist. That features an extensive guide to everything you need to have packed and ready to go before you ever step foot on the ship. You can print it out and take it with you or save it on your phone for quick access. Just drop us your email at disneyfoodblog.com/cruisepacking and I'll get that list sent your way. Okay, first things first, when you are going on a Disney cruise, download the Disney Cruise Line app. Much like you need to download that My Disney Experience app for a Disney World vacation or the Disneyland app for a Disneyland one, it's important to download the Disney Cruise Line Navigator app months before the start of your trip. Initially, the app's going to show you a trip countdown along with your payment summary, online check-in features, and trip modification options. But once you go aboard, the Navigator app is your go-to guide to make sure you're in the know about what's happening on the ship at all times. The app will be able to tell you things like where character meet and greets are happening, when deck parties will kick off, all the menus for all the dining you're going to be doing, and what your itinerary for the day looks like based around your pre-registered activities and what you are interested in. Now, the app also has an onboard chat feature, so you can easily message everyone else in your cruising group and keep tabs of where everyone is without having to use paid Wi-Fi, which is super, super useful. Okay, next thing to know before your cruise with Disney, get your passport now, like right now. If you haven't gotten a passport for your Disney Cruise Line trip yet, stop everything and go do that ASAP. There is a high demand for passports right now, making the average processing time currently 10 to 13 weeks for standard applications and 7 to 9 weeks for expedited applications. So if you don't yet have a passport, you'll need to make sure to plan on getting one months before your cruise. I'd even go so far as to recommend applying for one a year out just to give yourself plenty of processing time. You can apply for a passport at government official buildings near you, including your local library, post office, and clerks of court. When I had to do it recently, I just went online and figured out where the locations were where you could get passports, and I went ahead and made an appointment to do that, so I wasn't just sitting and waiting for a long time and potentially not being seen. My husband and I had to renew our passports, and we had to get a brand new one for our kids, so that's sort of the tack that I took. Just went online and figured out where the offices were around me and found an appointment that made sense. Also, I'm going to give you a little heads up that you actually need to bring your passport with you on the cruise, because I forgot my passport. After all of that, I decided, no, why in the world would I bring my passport to Florida so that I can go on this cruise to this other country? And that was an absolute nightmare. Luckily, one of my team members was coming on the cruise too, and she was able to stop by my house and grab my passport on her way over. But yeah, that was not smart. I don't recommend it. All right, so your cruise doesn't just take place on the ship. You're going to be able to get out at a couple or a few ports of call during your trip to do some exploring. But every time you leave the ship, make sure you take your key card and your ID with you. You're going to need both of these to get back onto the ship, so don't leave them behind in the room. If you do happen to leave your key card back in the room on accident, you'll need to go to guest relations to have a new key card issued. You can ask one of the cast members at the front of the ship out at port to help you pull this off. But this will deactivate your old key card, so don't worry about taking the first one along with you everywhere when and if you find it again. Its job is done. Now, if you are at a port that is in another country, i.e. this is not an American port, then you're going to want to bring your passport as well so you can get in and out through customs. Now, one thing I didn't realize when I was taking my baby on a cruise was that you need to book the nursery in advance if you want to use the nursery, because the nursery is different from the kids clubs. If you're looking to book a massage or enjoy a nice dinner with your partner, or even just lounge by the adults-only pool undisturbed for a little bit, you can take your baby, who falls between the ages of 6 months to 3 years, to the It's a Small World nursery on board the ships. Here's the catch though, this nursery does cost extra and you will need to book it in advance, like I said, once you're able. And yes, the nursery does book up, so it's best to make those reservations as soon as you get the chance. There is a per hour charge with a minimum of 1 hour, and cancellation fees do apply if you cancel your arrangements without at least 4 hours notice. Parents are required to provide their own diapers, baby wipes, extra clothing and pajamas, pre-made bottles of milk or formula, baby food in jars, sippy cups, and security items like blankets, passies, and favorite toys. And everything should be labeled with the child's name, just like any daycare or childcare facility you'd use back home. The nursery counselors use the chat feature in the Navigator app to communicate any needs or situations to the parents, so you don't have to stress about continuously going back to check on your kiddo once you drop them off. And speaking of those kids clubs, that's the great part of Disney Cruise Line. Those are completely free. Let's take a super quick look at all the kids and teens options available. Disney's Oceaneer Club, ages 3 to 12, starts off as a central hub that splits into different themed rooms with unique theming and activities going on. Depending on your cruise ship, that'll determine what kind of Oceaneer Club rooms kiddos can experience while on board, but they can include areas like Andy's Room, the Star Wars Command Post, Marvel Superhero Academy, Pixie Hollow, Frozen Adventures, and Walt Disney Imagineering Lab, and several other awesome offerings that'll make your kids basically want to spend all their time there. Disney's Oceaneer Lab lets kids explore their more creative sides with craft studios, media rooms, and other various artsy workshops. When you arrive on the ship, your kids will receive Oceaneer bands, which will grant them access to both the Oceaneer Club and Lab. Just make sure your kids are registered during the check-in process for your cruise reservation. Don't worry, Disney will prompt you when it's time to get them all signed up. According to the Disney Cruise Line website, check-in is available beginning 30 days prior to your sailing date and can be accessed via the Disney Cruise Line Navigator app or by signing into your account on the Disney Cruise Line website. Edge, ages 11 to 14, provides kids with a chance to hang out with other tweens and teens their age while getting the chance to play games, have dance or karaoke parties, and engage in counselor-led activities. And Vibe, ages 14 to 17, is a club built with teens in mind, where technology and social media reign supreme. You've got giant screens complete with surround sound for watching films and concerts, non-alcoholic refreshments, and even a private deck area if you're cruising on the Disney Dream or Fantasy, that is. On the Wish, teens and tweens can also enjoy Hideaway, a unique third tween-teen space adjacent to Vibe. It's a sort of flex space that can be open to the teen club or closed off for tween-only events. Now, once kids get to the Oceaneer Club, they may never want to leave, which is why it's nice to know that the typical hours for this exclusive kids club range between 9 a.m. to midnight. According to the Disney website, the Oceaneer clubs usually never close early, but on some mornings they could open an hour or two later. Just keep an eye on your Navigator app so you'll know the exact Oceaneer Club times for each day of your cruise. Now, you might think it wouldn't matter when exactly you decide to go ahead and book your cruise, but it really, really does. Generally speaking, the further away from your scheduled sail date you book your cruise, the better. Not only will you potentially save money by using this method due to some limited time savings opportunities we'll talk about later on, but booking early also increases the choices of staterooms you'll have. Cruises tend to fill up closer to the sail date, so if you put off making a reservation, then you might be left with slim pickings and potentially pricier stateroom options when it comes to your accommodations. All right, let's go ahead and dive into the big stuff. When can you actually start booking your port excursions, your fancy dining opportunities, your kids club activities, and if you're lucky, private cabanas? Well, when you get to book all these extras depends on your Castaway Club member status. Now, don't let this club member title throw you off. You automatically become part of this club once you book your first cruise. For first-time cruisers, you'll be able to start booking those extra activities 75 days before your trip. But the more you cruise, the sooner you'll be able to start making reservations for things. Silver Castaway Club members who've booked 2 to 5 sailings can book activities 90 days out. Gold members who have booked 6 to 10 sailings can book activities 105 days out. Platinum members who have booked 11 to 25 sailings can book activities 120 days out, and Pearl members who've booked 26 plus sailings can book activities 123 days out. Pearl and Platinum members have the best chances of getting those highly coveted cabanas. You can also book activities 120 days in advance if you're staying in a concierge level stateroom, which will also give you exclusive access to the ship's private lounge. But booking some of those exclusive activities can be a struggle. Disney even admits on their website that booking a private family beach cabana on Castaway Cay is quite the feat. These cabanas are super popular with guests and only have a limited number available at any time. Beach cabanas can be pricey, ranging around $399 to $1,300 depending on the style you book. But if you get the chance to purchase one, you'll have your own personal space, rental items at your disposal, and all-day concierge services. So how can you increase your chances of getting a cabana rental? First off, you need to know the earliest time you're allowed to start booking extra activities like we just talked about in the last point. As soon as the clock strikes midnight on the day you can start booking your extra activities, they'll go live for you to start choosing on the site and the Navigator app. If you don't get the cabana reservation you were hoping for, which, not to be a Debbie Downer or anything, but it's very likely, then you can always go to guest services on the day you board the ship to ask to be put on a cabana waitlist. This doesn't guarantee you'll be able to get a cabana, but it still might be your best shot at getting one regardless. And if you're on a cruise that makes not just one but 2 stops in Castaway Cay, you'll have a little bit more of a chance to get a cabana the second time around. Again, the odds can still be against you depending on your cruise status, but double the Castaway trips means double the chance. So one of the many different activities you can book before your trip is a beverage tasting seminar. They are available on all 5 ships. Now, the type of tasting seminars do vary from cruise to cruise, but you might be able to take part in a class that specializes in different spirits like rum, whiskey, tequila, bourbon, beer, or even a combo chocolate and liquor tasting too. There are also mixology classes you can take part in where you'll be able to make your very own cocktail thanks to the bartender-led workshops. These are some of my favorite things to do, especially on the first day of the cruise, because it's a good way to settle in and get started on your vacation. Now, not all excursions have to be Disney specific. This is an important point that not a lot of cruisers realize. Though it might be easiest and most convenient to book any of your port excursions directly through Disney, that's not your only activity booking option for overseas ports of call. Sometimes those excursions through Disney are really, really expensive. So if you want to do a less expensive one, you can. Depending on where your port of call is, you can book third-party excursions, which could take you around new areas that a Disney-specific excursion might not hit up, including unique places to sightsee and shop, scuba dive, etc. Although these third-party excursions are often cheaper than what Disney will offer you, there is one major downside to them. If your third-party excursion happens to run late, your Disney cruise ship will not wait for you, meaning you'll have to find another way to get back home, and that could put a damper on your trip. However, if your Disney excursion runs later than expected, the ship will hang tight until you're safe and sound back on board. So how can you get a fine dining reservation at the last minute? Well, let's say you want to book a nice meal for one night of your cruise, but all the tables are already booked by the time you go on the website to make reservations. When you first board, go immediately to the fancy schmancy restaurant that you were wanting to book. That could be Palo or Enchanté or Remy, depending on what cruise ship you're on. Talk to a host at the front of the restaurant and see if you can put your name on a first come, first serve wait list. That way, if availability does come up, you still might be able to get your classy date night after all. Note, just like the cabanas, this isn't always going to be a guarantee for you, but unlike the cabanas, you've got a much higher chance of getting a last minute table by using this walk-up method. Now, you know what books up faster than a fancy dinner? A fancy brunch. That's right, Palo brunch. Palo's known for its high-end Italian cuisine, but this restaurant brings its Italian flair to their brunch offering too. While Palo is available to book for any night aboard every cruise ship, aside from the Disney Wish, which offers the Palo Steakhouse instead, brunch is only offered on limited mornings and usually only on sea days. To find out when this classy brunch is happening during your next cruise, make sure to yet again check your Navigator app for an updated dining schedule. And if you haven't gotten to the port yet, go ahead and look on the Disney Cruise Line website when your extra bookings are available. This you can also book same as Palo dinner or Enchanté dinner. You can book Palo brunch when your booking window opens. Now, something to note, just because you've been on a Disney cruise doesn't mean you've been on every Disney cruise, because no 2 Disney cruise ships are exactly alike. There are 5 cruise ships you can sail aboard: the Magic, the Wonder, the Dream, the Fantasy, and the Wish. And these might operate similarly. They may all offer pool deck parties and private kids clubs and all-inclusive dining and musical performances, but they're not the same. Each cruise has unique offerings, and some of these may end up being the biggest selling points for you and your group. You can learn more about every Disney cruise available during our Ranking Every DCL Cruise Ship video live on the DFB channel now. But overall, just make sure you study up on all the different offerings across the ships so you don't end up booking the wrong choice for your family. Now, as exciting as an exclusive kids club can be for some, others may find the idea of not having their parents close by and being surrounded by a bunch of strangers in a place they're not familiar with to be kind of stressful. Now, this is where the open houses come into play. Open houses for the kids clubs allow adults to get a sneak peek with their kids at those super awesome kids-only spaces before the fun begins. Usually you'll find open houses listed on your Navigator app during Embarkation Day, but open houses can also happen at other times during your cruise too. Just check the app's updated schedule for a list of times for when you can swing by. But this is a great way to go into the clubs with your kids, so if they're a little stressed out, they can play while you're there, and then maybe that'll get them feeling a little bit more comfortable and okay to go without you. Now, let's talk packing, all right? You may need help deciding what to wear out at sea. Well, keep those deck parties at the forefront of your mind while packing. On certain days, the Disney cruises will have themed events with exclusive meet and greets and shows and games and nighttime extravaganzas. That'll keep you from hitting the hay really early. Depending on what cruise you're on, you may be able to experience things like Marvel Day at Sea, Pixar Day at Sea, Silver Anniversary at Sea for the Disney Cruise Line's 25-year anniversary celebration only in 2023, Pirate Night, that's on pretty much every cruise, a Frozen deck party, or even seasonal events if you're planning a cruiser on Halloween, Christmas, or New Year's Eve. Now, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, different cruises will have different themed events, so make sure you know what events will be happening during your trip and pack accordingly. So on the Disney Wish, there are two places where you can get a nice fresh hairdo. One is Cook's Barbery, that the Disney website states is fit for a captain, which offers hot shaves, beard trimmings, and even a hidden whiskey bar for those 21 and older. The other is the Untangled Salon, inspired by Rapunzel's luscious locks, which features a full range of salon services as you sit underneath dozens of floating lanterns. But don't be fooled by these two distinct salons. If you're a female and would like to try that hidden bar, go to Hook's Barbery. And if you're a male who'd rather receive a royal treatment in a much brighter atmosphere, go to the Untangled Salon. It's really no big deal which one you want to choose. Just go where you're most comfortable and enjoy that much needed rest and relaxation. Now, warning, don't put off your souvenir shopping until your ship is at port. Disney cruise gift shops are only open while out at sea. So if you're thinking you're going to hold off on all your shopping until you're at a port of call, you might find yourself awfully disappointed. This is also a super bummer if you wait to get those last souvenirs the morning of your debarkation day, because those shops are not going to be open, so you've got to buy everything you want to buy before you get off the ship by the night before. And the all-inclusive food doesn't stop at sea. Spending the day at Castaway Cay? Good news, you don't have to backtrack to the ship around lunch just to find your all-inclusive eats. Castaway Cay has 3 dining locations. The first 2 are for the whole family, Cookies Barbecue and Cookies 2 Barbecue, while the third one, Air Bar Barbecue, is over at Serenity Bay, aka the adults-only beach. Anything you pick up food-wise from these 3 locations is free game, literally free, but Air Bar also offers up some specialty adult cocktails too that you will have to pay extra for. As far as dining around other ports of call other than Castaway Cay, you will have to pay extra for all your non-Disney meals. So again, bring extra cash if you plan on getting some grub outside the Disney bubble and at one of the local food stands. Now remember that all-inclusive rotational dining I talked about earlier? Each rotational restaurant has a 3-course option where you can order an appetizer, entree, and dessert. But that doesn't mean you gotta stick to those dining parameters for each meal. If you wanted 4 appetizers, no entree, and 1 dessert, you can do that. Or if you wanted 3 entrees and no extra apps or sweets, you can do that too. The dining world is your oyster while you're out at sea. Just make sure you let your server know what exactly your palate's craving, and they'll make sure it is satisfied. And now this is one of my favorite things about cruising on Disney Cruise Line, and it's a big plus in Disney's favor. Many cruise ships don't have a free room service option, but Disney does, and they have it 24/7. Now here's a tidbit of advice for you. Even though you won't see these on the menu, go ahead and order some Mickey Premium ice cream bars up to your room to enjoy out on your veranda, if you've got one, of course. You can also order Mickey Premium bars in the dining rooms at any time. Just ask and you shall receive. So there are 2 ways to enjoy a good old morning meal on the ship without having to pay extra money for a fancy brunch. The first way is through the ship's casual buffet offering, which will be located over at Cabanas on the Disney Magic, Wonder, Dream, and Fantasy, and Marceline Market on the Wish. These buffets will provide you with a lot of food, minus a lot of waiting around, but these spaces can get pretty packed out in the morning hours. The second and more peaceful breakfast option is eating in certain dining room areas instead when they're available. Normally, you'd eat at these dining room locations during one of your rotational dinners, but some of these restaurants open in the morning too for a more casual and relaxed sit-down meal. These dining rooms include Lumiere's on the Disney Magic, Triton's on the Wonder, Royal Palace on the Dream, Royal Court on the Fantasy, and Enchanted Garden on the Disney Dream and the Fantasy. Now, you know we love the free soft serve on the ship, but there's also something to be said about the premium sundaes you can get during your cruise too. Sundaes can be ordered at specialty ice cream and candy shops, like Sweet on You that you'll find on the Fantasy and Vanellope Sweets and Treats that you'll find on the Dream. These sundaes can get over the top, especially if you choose to order something like the Vanellope Von Schweet's Race Cart Sundae, which is served in this adorable race cart that looks just like Vanellope's own set of wheels out of the Wreck-It Ralph films. You can bring it home with you, by the way. But if you want to brag about how awesome your Sunday is, you can actually have it pre-ordered and delivered to you during dinner that night. Not kidding. It makes you feel really special, and the jealous stares from other tables makes you feel high and mighty too. I actually did this for my mom's birthday once. I ordered one of those giant family challenge sundaes at Vanellope's and had it delivered to us at dinner that night. It was so cool. So let's talk elevators. They can be a little bit confusing on some of these ships. We came across some weird elevator changes when the Disney Wish first set sail last year. Unlike the other 4 ships, the Wish doesn't have a central elevator bank. Instead, it only has 2 elevator banks, forward and aft. This is because that central elevator bank on all the other ships gets so clogged up. If you've cruised, you understand. Also, keep in mind that only certain Wish elevators will go up to the very top floors. For example, if you're trying to get to floor 13 to go to Palo Steakhouse and are currently on floor 6 in the aft elevator bank, only the farthest toward the wall elevators are going to take you up to floor 13. The others are going to stop at 11 and 12. Like I said, things are confusing here in Elevator Land on the Wish. So when an up elevator opens, check the buttons inside to see if there is a button for 13. If not, you'll need to wait for another one. Or just go up to 11 or 12 and walk, right? Now, one last elevator note, and then I swear I'll shut up about elevators. The elevator buttons on the Wish are also touchless, which means they are activated by someone just being near them. But that means when an elevator is packed, which if anyone's cruised on DCL before, they always are, then someone will inevitably press up against all the buttons to let someone by, which means they all light up in Buddy the Elf Christmas tree fashion. If you're able, give that elevator button panel some space so you don't find yourself stopping on every single floor. When the ship is that big and there's 13 of them, that's a lot of stopping. All right, so you don't feel like paying for booze on the big boat, eh? Disney Cruise Line will allow you to bring up to 2 bottles of wine or 2 6-packs of beer per person for those who are 21 years of age and older, of course. But hard liquor is a no-go. Now, let's say you purchase some real nice tequila or bourbon or something while you're at the port of call. If that's the case, these purchases will be checked before you get back on the ship and stored by Disney for the remainder of your trip. Once you're back at home port, you can pick up your liquor then and enjoy it in moderation from the safety of your own home post-vacation. But what if you want to take your own bottle of wine to the fancy restaurant you've booked a reservation for? What then? Well, the good news is Disney's cool with that. The bad news, they're still going to charge you for it. The corking fee at Disney Cruise Line restaurants is $26 per bottle, so you may want to think twice before bringing that $6 barefoot wine along with you on your dinner date. But let's go back to that rotational dining for just a second. There are 3 unique rotational dining experiences you'll be able to try on your cruise, and it all depends on which cruise you book, right? Just to make things easier on you and the cast members on board, your rotational dining schedule is predetermined after you select your preferred dining time slot upon booking. There are 2 dining time slots you can choose from. The first is 5:45, the second's at 8:15 or 8 o'clock. Usually the 5:45 sells out the fastest. Now you'll be able to find your dining rotation schedule as well as dining times on the Disney Cruise Line Navigator app once you get on board. You don't know it before you get on board. Your schedule will also be printed on your room key cards. However, let's say you're cruising on the Disney Wish and you see that your restaurant schedule has placed you dining at 1923 on night 1, Worlds of Marvel on night 2, and Arendelle Frozen Dining Experience on night 3. But you were really hoping to start off your trip with the Frozen themed sing-along and end your trip on a classier note with 1923. If you want to switch up your rotational dining schedule, make sure to ask about it at guest services just as soon as you get on the ship. For the most part, switching up your meal lineup shouldn't be too big of a deal, but once that ship takes off, your schedule is going to be set. So here's our big, bad, honest opinion for you on ports of call. It's cool knowing that your cruise ship won't just stop at one port. Like if you're cruising on the Wish, for instance, you're not just cruising to Castaway Cay. You'll also get a chance to get off the ship at Nassau in the Bahamas too. But here's the thing. These types of pit stops along the way may not be your favorite part of the trip depending on where you're going. Yes, you can potentially see some cool landmarks like Fort Charlotte, built in honor of King George III's wife, and the Queen's Staircase leading to Fort Fincastle. But the shopping streets here are lined with in-your-face salesfolk who can be a little intense, and a lot of the stores are the same stores you're going to find in every cruise port all over the Caribbean. Though the Disney Cruise Line will give you quite a bit of time to explore this port, and you should at least step out for a little while just to say you did, maybe on the first cruise, I wouldn't spend your whole day here. Instead, I might recommend getting out for an hour or two, then hopping back on board to experience less busy pools and spas, which is 10 times more relaxing than being shoulder to shoulder with tourists all over the place. If you do, however, want to explore a certain port of call for longer, because this could be a once-in-a-lifetime chance to do so with those overseas locations, make sure to research the area you'll be stopping at ahead of your trip and learn about what places may be worth checking out while you're off the ship instead of wandering aimlessly against the crowds. In January, I took a cruise that stopped at Grand Cayman. Now, I've never been to Grand Cayman, but I wanted to see what was there. So I did a little bit of research and I found a wonderful little museum that was within walking distance of the ship. And it was a great museum that really explored the history of Grand Cayman, and I learned a ton. I was also one of the only people in there, which is really unfortunate because there were tons of cruise ships docked there that day. So there are definitely interesting and intriguing things to do in these ports of calls. When I was in Skagway in Alaska, I kind of fashioned my own little food tour. I just sort of walked up and down the streets and tried all the food I could when I was there, and it was one of my best days on a cruise ever. So there's lots to do in these locations. Don't get caught up just in the first two streets where all the cruise tourist traps are. Explore and find some cool things to do. Maybe take one of the shore excursions. Definitely do a little bit of research though before you get on the ship. Now, let's talk about those rides. Yes, rides on the cruise ships. The Aqua Mouse, available on the Disney Wish, and the Aqua Duck, available on the Dream and Fantasy, are the star water coaster attractions for their ships. And although you're probably not going to have to wait over 2 hours to ride these, like you might have to do with Rise of the Resistance in Hollywood Studios, the lines can get long for these coasters, especially during the heat of the day and on your sea day. Now, when it comes to my usual theme park advice, we normally recommend hitting up those popular rides at the start of the day, but that's not always going to be available for Disney Cruise Line coasters. When you're out at sea, these rides could open as early as 9 to 10 a.m., but on Embarkation Day and Castaway Cay Day, they may not open up until 1 p.m., and yet by 12:30 p.m. on those days, the lines are already going to start forming. Per usual, your Navigator app will be able to give you the specifics for when these rides are going to open for the day and how long they'll be open for, but my favorite time to ride these coasters is during dinner and the shows. If for some reason you're not into seeing the shows, or you ate at cabanas and you don't feel like going to your rotational dining location, this is when these aqua coasters can be at their most queue friendly. My son, when we were on the Wish, decided he was going to set the record for how many times someone could ride the Aqua Mouse in one cruise. And I think we attained it. I think we rode it about 27 times. And that, my friends, is what happens when you cruise with your kids. But those are the best times, when everybody's at dinner and everybody's at the show. There's nobody in the pool. So there you go. Now, speaking of lines, let's talk about character meet and greets. Just because they're out at sea doesn't make them any less popular. Lines for character meet and greets can get lengthy like they do over in the parks, so make sure to prioritize the characters you really want to meet during your cruise. Character meet and greets will happen several times during your trip, all throughout the day, so at the start of your cruise, sift through your Navigator app schedule, filter for the character experiences, and heart the character meeting times that you want to make sure you prioritize. You may also be able to cheat some of the lines by signing up for a royal gathering as one of your pre-registered activities. These types of meet and greet signups won't cost you anything extra, and they'll give you the chance to meet several princesses in one go without the massive waits. That being said, there are some premium character meet and greet experiences on certain cruises that will cost extra, like the Royal Court Royal Tea and Olaf's Royal Picnic. Again, meet and greets happen several times during the course of your trip, but the only exception is going to be those specialty party days like we talked about earlier. Party days may be the one and only time you get to meet rare characters like Pirate Daisy or Loki Dale, so don't miss out. Now, things can get pretty overwhelming on Embarkation Day, especially if this is your first ever cruise. So if you don't need to go to guest services for anything, what should you do first? Many guests are going to make a beeline to the food court to get a head start on that all-inclusive dining. But if you're not hungry yet, I'd recommend heading on over to the pools. Unless you decide to hang back during one of the ports of call, Embarkation Day may wind up being one of the least busy times to take a dip in the main pools, and the adults-only pools too. But remember, you might not be able to get into your room until a little bit after you get on the ship. Usually they're ready around 3 or 4 p.m. So bring your bathing suit and your carry-on so you can change in one of the bathrooms and head to the pool. Now, did I pique your interest with the adults-only pool talk? Each Disney cruise has an adults-only pool area, aka Quiet Cove, but the Disney Wish steps it up a notch by offering an adults-only infinity pool area, which can get really popular during the afternoon hours. If you want to avoid feeling like you're in the middle of human soup, then try hitting up these adults-only pool areas in the early morning as a way to kickstart your day with some much-needed peace, quiet, and swim time. I would go up to the infinity pool around 9 a.m. There's nobody there, and it's still warm enough and nice. Now, this next one's a gamble, but it's a gamble worth trying. When you're at one of the Disney Cruise Line bars, ask about the Sommelier bin. Now, the Sommelier bin is designated for open bottles of wine. If a guest orders a particular type of wine that hasn't been opened yet, then the rest of that bottle will need to be used on the same day to guarantee its freshness. And that means you can sometimes get a really pricey glass of wine for a base price if you order whatever's in the Sommelier bin during the time of your visit. Your mileage on this could vary, because sometimes you'll just end up with a standard wine you could have gotten elsewhere, but still, you get wine either way, and for a potentially cheaper price too. Again, not a guarantee, but it doesn't hurt to check. So rotational dining again. This might put you in a new restaurant each night, but you'll have the same server following you between meals. The reason Disney keeps you with the same server each night instead of pairing you up with a different person meal after meal is so that your server can learn about your specific preferences and food accommodations, which they'll then use for all your future dinners aboard the ship. Plus, it's just really nice to get to know your server too. These cast members are great at what they do, and they do an amazing job at making sure you have a good time while also validating your dining requests. So after getting to know your server, you're more than likely going to be thrilled to leave gratuity for them, since they're going to go above and beyond to make sure you're taken care of aboard the ship. To customize that gratuity amount for servers, assistant servers, and stateroom hosts, you'll need to add prepaid gratuities to your DCL reservation through your Disney account. Now here's the catch. If you don't set a prepaid amount for gratuities before your trip, Disney will automatically charge the suggested gratuity to your onboard account and assume you're A-OK with that, which is $14.50 per night per stateroom and $15.50 per night per concierge stateroom. The places where gratuity is not factored out in advance are for, well, any other additional services like the spas, the lounges, and signature restaurants. Then the amount you tip will be entirely up to your discretion, or in some cases automatically tacked onto your bill. So don't be embarrassed if you get lost trying to find your stateroom. These ships are huge and all these hallways look the same. Finding your way around these cruises in general can get confusing, especially the Wish. Which way is toward the front of the ship? Which way is toward the back? Where's the aft? Where's forward? How do you know where to go when the stateroom hallways look exactly the same? If you're getting overwhelmed trying to find your way back to your room, just look down. The carpets generally feature stars or Mickey heads if you're cruising on the Wish. If the stars or Mickeys are pointing straight, meaning the peak of the star is pointing forward in the direction you're walking, then you're walking forward in the ship. If your stars are not pointing straight, then you're headed aft. It doesn't seem like this would be a problem if you haven't cruised before, but believe me, it's a problem. Now, the Disney Cruise Line has quite the list of no-no items that you are not allowed to bring aboard the ships. When it comes to electronic devices, you cannot bring aboard things like electric blankets, electric steamers, extension cords, power strips, surge protectors, heating pads, or celebratory light bulb strings. Now, the power strips can really trip some families up, since having multiple outlets can be handy for charging multiple devices at once. But in order to prevent any potential electrical fires on board, Disney isn't going to budge on this rule. That being said, you can bring a USB splitter instead to still help you charge multiple devices. There are more items on the no-go list that are posted on the DCL website, so I'll go ahead and link that list in the description below so you can check it out later on. This next tip is one of my favorites. Pack a reusable water bottle. It is funny how many tips and tricks for the cruise ships overlap with the tips and tricks we give you for the parks, but that reusable water bottle advice is such a banger we can't help but bring it up again. Reusable water bottles are great to have on hand to keep you hydrated all day long, and what makes a reusable water bottle even better for the cruises is your ability to refill them with not just water, but with sodas and tea and coffee too. So whenever you see a soda dispenser at one of the quick services or buffets, fill up with what you like best. Just be sure to use a cup to fill up your refillable water bottle. And there are also bottle fillers around some of the ships now, so use those as well when you pass them by. Now, for me, because I want to stay really, really hydrated, I use that refillable water bottle, but I also like having bottles of water on hand inside my room for those middle of the night hydration purposes, or, to have purified drinking water available at all times without it being an inconvenience. But if you do bring your own cases of water, you got to make sure they're factory sealed. You can also order a case of water through the actual cruise line. You can purchase bottles of water before your trip through Onboard Gifts, which is an extension of the Disney Cruise website, and it allows you to pre-order celebratory items or necessities you want brought up to your stateroom pre-arrival. Or you can call room service and purchase a case of water via your stateroom phone. Just know if you buy it on the ship, it's going to be really expensive. Now, when you're looking over the different amenities found in your stateroom before your Disney cruise, you might notice that one of them is listed as a refrigerator. But don't get too excited about this because these fridges are essentially small cool boxes on most of the ships. The Wish's fridge is a bit fancier than what you'll find on the other 4 ships. However, none of these refrigerators are going to do a super great job at keeping ice cream treats preserved or leftovers from spoiling. They can, however, keep drinks cool so you don't have to gulp them down at room temperature. Now, here's something that might take you off guard if you've never cruised with Disney before. The Disney Cruise Line prides themselves on being eco-friendly, which is why they strive to save power any chance they get. So in order to turn on the lights, you'll insert a card into the light slot that's next to the door and then use the switches. Disney would like you to use your key card since that forces you to retrieve it and turn off the lights before you leave the room, but not everyone always remembers to do that, meaning you could very well accidentally lock yourself out of your room. Fortunately, you don't actually have to insert your DCL specific key into the light slot. Any old card will do. Got a used up Starbucks gift card? Use that. Or an expired library card? You can use that too. Maybe even a gym membership card. Hey, gotta use that sucker for something, right? It's still a good idea to retrieve these cards upon leaving your room instead of keeping your lights on the whole time you're gone. But at least if you forget to retrieve it, you're not gonna accidentally lock yourself out like I have done before. Okay, of course we're going to talk about fish extenders in this video. During your cruise, you may notice these pouches or felt organizers displayed in front of other cruisers' staterooms. These are called fish extenders because on the original ships, those little clips next to the doors were fish, and so you'd extend the fish with this thing that you hung on there. Now, it's not always fish on all of the newer cruise ships, but they're still called fish extenders. You can make these yourself or buy them off Etsy or Amazon, but the important thing to remember is Disney doesn't have a whole lot to do with this extra cruise feature. Instead, this is a secret Santa-like concept created by Disney Cruise Line fans where you can leave little goodies for other cruisers outside their doors. These are usually people that you've met on Disney Cruise Line forums online or on Facebook groups because there's usually a Facebook group for the specific cruise you're going on that someone's created. But just make sure the forum you're using to meet these cruise line companions is reliable and that you're not giving away any super personal information through these websites. You do not, I repeat, do not have to participate in this activity if you don't want to. But if you think it'd be kind of fun to drop some cute little stickers and keychains and lanyards as a surprise gift for someone else, and hopefully receive some surprise gifts in return, then by all means do your research and find out how you can get involved. However, if you're not interested in this side activity, but you're still kind of wanting to spruce up your stateroom door just for fun, or to put an identifying marker outside your room to make it easier to spot down the hallway, just make sure you use magnets and magnets only. Any decorations that use tape or command strips or anything else are going to be taken down immediately by cast members who spot them in passing, since these kind of adhesives aren't good for the paint on the doors. If you have something you want to put on your door and you already know it's most certainly not magnetic, you can always buy a few cheap sticky back magnets at your local craft store to slap on the back side of your decor. Ta-da! Now it's a magnet. So, quick one here, do not underestimate the power of cruise ship air conditioning. Even if you're cruising in the summer, there are certain indoor sections of the ships where the AC is high and mighty. If you tend to get chilly easily, bring a little hoodie or jacket that you can easily slip on and off. And on the other side of the coin, when I was cruising on the Wish in July, my stateroom was actually kind of warm and I really couldn't get it as cool as I wanted it to be, so you may want to bring a little USB fan as well. Now, don't forget about the scavenger hunts, so sleuthing and capers and mysteries. If you're looking for a free activity that'll help you thoroughly explore the ship you're sailing on, the Midship Detective Agency is on the case. The Disney Dream and Fantasy both host the Midship Detective Agency. It's an interactive game that takes guests all around the ships to solve a mystery. There are 3 different mystery options you can choose from, involving Mickey and friends, characters from Disney's 101 Dalmatians, or the Muppets. Disney Wish also has its own interactive game called Disney Uncharted Adventure. Disney Uncharted Adventure uses the Play Disney Parks app and AR technology on your mobile device to play games and interact with your favorite Disney characters. But that one's not as Muppety, so the Disney Dream and Fantasy win in that regard. Alright, so you may not think going for a jog during your cruise is going to be an activity you'd be super stoked for, but the running decks offered on the cruises are actually one of my favorite places to go on board. First of all, many guests don't even realize that the walking and jogging track is there, so you'll often have a lot of space for yourself. And secondly, the jogging-walking track can sometimes take you past some really unique spots on the ship. For instance, on certain Disney Cruise Line ships, there's a porthole along the track that actually looks into some of the ship's kitchens. So these little trails can wind up weaving you past a few behind-the-scenes areas that you wouldn't have experienced otherwise. However, when it comes to the running deck on the Disney Wish, things get kind of weird. Instead of having a continuous track like the other 4 ships have, the Wishes track is broken up, so you have to go up various stairs and crossovers to actually complete a full lap. I'm not a big fan of the setup there, but you still might want to at least walk around it just to check things out. But be prepared. If you are a runner and you know you like those running tracks, plan to spend some time in the gym when you're on the Wish, because it's kind of annoying to try to do that run with all those steps and stairs. So this next one is just a general PSA to keep you from underestimating these ships and or setting yourself up for failure. Disney cruises can be a less intense vacation than the Disney parks, but that doesn't mean there's a shortage of things to do. There are so many shows and excursions, dining experiences, spa days, shops, and events that you're going to be able to jam-pack your days with. So make sure you study up on the different cruise offerings before you head out so you can figure out what you want to prioritize. But in the same breath, give yourself a little wiggle room to take things as they come. If you want to spend more time just relaxing on the Castaway Cay beach, do it. If you want to go lounge hopping on the last night of your trip, go for it. If you want to get your 736th soft serve cone because it's already paid for, do it. The Disney ships tend to be a healthy mix of keeping you busy all the time while also reminding you not to overextend yourself. Now, it doesn't happen often, but at limited times throughout the year, the Disney Cruise Line may just sneakily drop a nice discount for their future cruises. For example, thanks to our friends over at Small World Vacations, a travel agency we partner with, we found out early on that guests could save up to 35% off limited summer 2023 cruises for a selection of restricted rooms. Now, restricted rooms are unsold surplus staterooms in a specific category for very specific cruise dates. The agents at Small World Vacations are extremely good at keeping us in the know when it comes to deals like this. So if you want to be in the know too, you might want to reach out to them for a free quote as you start planning your future Disney vacation. I'll link their info for you down in the description below. And wait, what? AJ, you just gave us 50 tips on how to succeed at any Disney cruise, and now you're telling us not to go on one? Okay, number 51 in this list is that you may want to hold off on a cruise right now. But stick with me, let me explain. There are 2 new Disney Cruise Line ships that'll start setting sail over the next couple of years. And who knows, you may like these even better than the ones we've been talking about today. The Disney Treasure will enter the DCL fleet in 2024 as the Disney Wishes sister ship and will be a ship inspired by the grandeur and mystery of a gilded palace. This one's going to draw influences from Asia, Africa, and even Aladdin's Agrabah. And in 2025, the DCL will invite another ship into their family, but we don't know a whole lot of details surrounding this one just yet. What we do know is that it'll be based outside of the US and feature what Disney describes as an innovative experience along with dazzling entertainment. This one is going to sail out of Singapore. So we are on pins and needles waiting to learn about both of these new ships, but we promise to keep you updated just as soon as we learn more info about either one of them. So who's ready to start sailing? Don't forget, before you get to packing for your Disney cruise, make sure to drop us your email at disneyfoodblog.com/cruisepacking for an extensive checklist of what you need to have packed in your luggage and not have packed in your luggage to be ready to go before you set sail. Thanks for listening, everyone, and thanks for watching. You know how much I love to talk about Disney Cruise Line. I am definitely getting into my cruise era. As always, this is AJ for Disney Food Blog, and we'll see you real soon.